Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, let's dive into this because today we are getting highly tactical. If you're seriously aiming to break into the US DevOps market by 2026, look, you don't just need a massive list of tools to learn. You need a strategic, battle-tested game plan. So think of me as your senior engineer, and right now, we're sitting down for a one-on-one mentoring session. We're going to map out exactly how you should be spending your time, and honestly, more importantly, how to build a portfolio that literally forces hiring managers to pay attention to you. Assuming you've already locked in that rock-solid 3-layer foundation of Linux, networking, and programming, plus your cloud cert path from our last explainer, you are now totally ready for the execution phase. Section 1, the realistic 12-month timeline. We really need to focus on a pragmatic, no-nonsense schedule for this next year. I really want to emphasize the word realistic here, guys. The absolute biggest mistake I see ambitious junior engineers make is trying to cram a senior-level skill set into like a 12-week boot camp, right? It just leads to massive burnout and a super shallow understanding of what are actually incredibly complex systems. We need a schedule that systematically builds your competency layer by layer, week by week. So here is the macro view of your year. Notice how structured this is? Months 1 through 3, completely dedicated to those core fundamentals. You're basically living in the Linux command line, mastering networking protocols, and writing basic scripts. Then months 4 through 6, that's where you pivot to cloud certifications, getting AWS or Azure under your belt to prove you actually get cloud architecture. Months 7 through 9, that is all about hands-on portfolio projects. You're actually building things. And finally, months 10 through 12 are fully dedicated to aggressive interview prep and hunting for those junior roles. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and pacing yourself like this is exactly what guarantees you'll actually retain the knowledge. Let's move to and see how this builds specifically in that month 7 through 9 window. Listen, you do not need 20 different half-finished projects cluttering up your GitHub. You really don't. You only need 2 to 3. That's the magic number. 2 to 3 incredibly deep, highly polished, fully functioning portfolio projects. Hiring managers, they don't want to see a graveyard of basic hello world deployments, you know? They want depth. They want to see that you can take a really complex idea and see it through to the absolute finish line. And for those 2 or 3 projects, they absolutely must flawlessly demonstrate the entire pipeline, from start to finish. Step 1 is the actual infrastructure as code, provisioning your resources. Step 2 is the automated deployment, proving you actually understand continuous integration and continuous delivery. And step 3, man, so many beginners skip this one, is monitoring. You have to prove that once the app is live, you can track its health, you can set up alerts, and you understand its resource consumption. If your project just stops at deployment, it's not a DevOps project. It's really just a script. Hold on, I need to stop us right here for a second. We really need to have a serious talk about how you're actually building these projects. Ask yourself right now, honestly. Are you just opening up YouTube on one monitor, copying the code onto your other monitor, and calling it a day? Like, are step-by-step tutorials really going to be enough to cut it in today's cutthroat market? Listen to me very carefully. Tutorials will not get you hired. I'm just going to let that sink in for a second because it is that crucial. Following a flawless, curated guide where everything works perfectly the first time, it creates this massive illusion of competence. It feels super productive, sure, but it is completely divorced from reality. The US tech market is absolutely not paying high-end USD salaries to people who just copy-paste instructions. No way. They are paying for problem solvers. Which brings us to Section 2, proving true operational impact. This is where we pivot from what you build to how you prove it actually works in the real world. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast it shows. It's a reality check. The real world of DevOps is messy. Servers crash all the time. Deployments fail. Memory leaks hit you at 2 in the morning. Your portfolio has to reflect that you actually thrive in that chaos, not that you run from it. Look at the beginner mindset here on the left. It relies purely on tutorial following. It's clean, it's linear, and it completely falls apart the exact second a unique error code pops up. But the operational impact mindset on the right, that's what hiring managers are desperately searching for. They want engineers who purposely break their own systems just to see what happens under stress. They want people who simulate outages, who dig into bottlenecks, and who know exactly how to troubleshoot when flying blind. To actually show this, you've got to get into the dirt. When you're building those 2 to 3 core projects, I want you to document every single time something goes horribly wrong. Seriously, I want you documenting resolved incidents right there in your GitHub repository. And even more importantly, I want you writing detailed postmortems. A postmortem is basically a professional document explaining what broke, why it broke, how you fixed it, and what safeguards you put in place to make sure it literally never happens again. Guys, if an engineering director sees a well-written postmortem in a junior's portfolio, their jaw will hit the floor. It just shows an unbelievable level of maturity. And this brilliantly illustrates our core definition here. Operational impact is moving beyond building generic copy-paste projects to actively solving, documenting, and managing real-world system failures. It's the undeniable proof that you don't just know how to turn the engine on, but you actually know how to rebuild that engine while the car is flying down the highway at 80 miles an hour. That is the true essence of the job for sure. Section 3, standing out with open source. This is the absolute best way to make your portfolio just completely shine above the rest. So, if personal projects are just the baseline, how do you completely bypass the HR filter? Well, you do it by standing out with open source contributions. This is the ultimate flex. Getting your hands genuinely dirty means contributing to the actual tools the industry relies on every day. Look for open source infrastructure projects. Maybe there's a widely used Terraform module out there that has an open bug you can fix. Or maybe a community-driven GitHub action just needs better documentation or a quick code optimization. When you contribute to these tools, you're leaving a real mark on the global ecosystem, and your code is potentially being run by thousands of enterprises. And if you really want the ultimate resume booster, you aim for the heavyweights. We're talking massive cloud-native computing foundation projects, the CNCF giants like Kubernetes or Prometheus. Now, okay, I'm not saying you need to rewrite the core scheduling algorithm of Kubernetes as a junior. Obviously not. But fixing a small bug, improving a CLI tool, or even just contributing heavy technical documentation to these massive repos, that shows an elite level of initiative. It proves you can actually navigate massive, complex code bases and collaborate with top-tier engineers all around the globe. To summarize everything we've covered today, I really want to cement this mindset shift permanently. Stop following tutorials, start demonstrating operational impact. If you can truly internalize this concept, you are going to completely separate yourself from 90% of the candidate pool who are all just submitting the exact same cookie-cutter projects. So, the crucial point is, what is your ultimate career ceiling? If you follow this 12-month timeline diligently, if you build a deep portfolio centered on true operational impact, and if you start contributing to the open source community, what does that actually translate to in terms of your market worth in USD? How high can you actually climb in this field? In part 4, the final part, we're covering the full salary ladder and the adjacent specializations this roadmap can lead into. Welcome back. So here we are, the fourth and final explainer in our DevOps Engineer Roadmap 2026 series. Now, if you were taking notes during our last deep dive, where we talked about building that absolutely undeniable project portfolio, then you are in exactly the right place. Today, we're taking all that hard work, all that code, and we're translating it into real-world numbers. We are finally talking about exactly what your skills are worth in the marketplace right now. And spoiler alert, the market is paying a massive premium. Okay, let's dive into this agenda. We're going to outline the financial rewards, starting with the 2026 salary ladder, check out senior and principal compensation, look at the massive AI premium, and explore adjacent DevOps career paths. Then, we'll zoom out for a complete roadmap recap and finish up with your next action step. Number 1, the 2026 salary ladder. Let's set the stage for your financial ascent in the US market. So looking at these foundational rungs on the ladder, entry or junior DevOps roles are commanding a base range of $95,000 to $118,000. I mean, that is a phenomenal starting point, right? But watch how quickly this scales. As you gain hands-on experience and step into a mid-level role, you're suddenly looking at a national midpoint of $145,750. To put that into perspective, that substantial leap reflects just how incredibly valuable your proven operational skills are to companies today. You see, you aren't just writing code anymore. You're keeping the entire business online and functioning smoothly. And companies, well, they pay handsomely for that peace of mind. Let's move to and see how this builds with Section 2, Senior and Principal Compensation. Okay, once you master those foundations, the upper tiers of this career path become highly, highly lucrative. At the senior engineer level, you're no longer just maintaining systems. You're actively architecting solutions and leading major transformations. And for that advanced expertise, this tier ranges from $145,000 all the way up to $180,000. Hitting that top mark simply means you've demonstrated high impact efficiency at a massive scale. And then we reach the absolute peak of the ladder, For staff and principal DevOps engineers, these are the true visionaries shaping the entire technical direction of an organization. Base salaries start around $150,000 and scale dramatically to well over $260,000. Remember, we're talking strictly base compensation here for the heavy hitters in the US market who drive enterprise-wide engineering strategies. It is a remarkably high ceiling. Which brings us to Section 3, the massive AI premium. This is the ultimate compensation accelerant for 2026. Because everything we just looked at on that ladder, that was really just the baseline. Mastering artificial intelligence and AIOps isn't just a fun little technical advantage you sprinkle onto your resume. It is a massive financial multiplier. Integrating AI into your workflows to predict system failures before they even happen, that is exactly what separates a standard engineer from the absolute elite right now. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of the financial impact. Bringing AI's specialization to the table adds a staggering 30% to 50% salary premium right on top of those baseline numbers we just talked about. I mean, imagine taking that senior salary and multiplying it by 50%, simply because you wield AI effectively. Companies are desperately trying to optimize their cloud spend and reduce downtime. AI is the key to that puzzle. If you bring that capability, you become the defining differentiator in the market. Moving right along to Section 4, Adjacent DevOps Career Paths. Let's see how these skills branch out. It's really important to realize that this roadmap and these massive salaries aren't strictly locked to a single job title on your LinkedIn profile. The foundational skills we've discussed open doors to some highly lucrative adjacent specializations. For instance, you could pivot into site reliability engineering, or SRE, focusing heavily on software engineering approaches to keep massive systems from failing. Or you might move into platform engineering, building those critical internal portals that keep entire engineering teams running fast and smooth. Alternatively, you could dive into DevSecOps, integrating vital security practices so companies avoid catastrophic data breaches. The point is, this roadmap empowers you to chase any of these high-demand avenues. So, the crucial point is really captured here in Section 5, the complete roadmap recap. And this brilliantly illustrates the cohesive journey you've just completed over this 4-part series. Step 1 was understanding the landscape and the undeniable impact of AI. Step 2 was building your unbreakable technical skill foundation. Step 3, mapping out the timeline and blueprint for your portfolio. And finally today, Step 4, connecting it all to the salary ladder. It's a beautiful cycle, really. The technical skills drive the portfolio lands the job, and continuous learning is what scales your salary to the absolute top. Let's wrap things up with Section 6, your next action step. Time to shift gears. We are at the end of the road. You have the map, and you know exactly what the market pays. So I have to ask you directly, what is your one next step? Literally, the very second this explainer finishes, what are you going to do? Are you just going to click away and watch something else? Or are you actually going to take a tangible step toward that 2026 goal? Because knowledge without execution is completely useless. Your single, non-negotiable action step right now is to execute your portfolio building strategy today. Go open your terminal, spin up a new repository, and start building. That $260,000 plus peak is waiting for you out there, but you have to build the ladder yourself, one project at a time. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. But before you go, I want you to ask yourself this. As AI continues to rapidly rewrite the very rules of software engineering, will you be the one automating the future or the one being automated? The choice starts with the code you write today.